So I'm counting on the REM records. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've kind of debated on the running order. I've listened to all of them recently, some of them multiple times. Some of them I've taken notes on while I've listened to them, kind of captured new themes I didn't fully realize were there. Sometimes I've looked up the lyrics. It has to start somewhere, and it has to start with a much maligned Around the Sun record. This record came out in 2004, came out on October 5th, 2004. The reason why I remember the date, and I checked before I started making this video, is I saw them live on the Vote for Change tour the same day that this record came out, the same night. So I had the record. I think it leaked earlier. I was familiar with it, but I went out and bought it, and I just remember thinking it was a dud and not really interesting at all and super disappointing to the point when where I was sitting with my friend waiting for the show to start and I said, yeah, they just put out a new record, it kind of sucks. And I would never say that, like never say that about an REM record. I've since changed my tune. I think it's a okay record. I just think it's a bad REM record, but it's not without its merit. It's not one, if you're a big REM fan, you want to skip. There's certainly some really, really good songs on here. It's just the sound of them, like as Peter Buck said later, of three guys being completely bored with the material. I think a lot of that had to do with releasing a greatest hits record in the middle of all this, or the Warner Brothers years. And they went on tour to support that too. So it was kind of a strange, I think, back and forth coming back to this material. And one thing that the band will say a lot is that Barry and Buck were the ones that wanted to do things quickly, whereas Stipe and Mills were the ones that kind of the perfectionists, the ones that wanted to try it again and again and again, mess with arrangements, all that stuff. So this definitely has doesn't really have the influence of Buck. Great songs in here though. There's some. I Wanted to Be Wrong is great. Final Straw had been released a year before, kind of an anti-war song, and they released it early and then they ended up putting on this record. It didn't have quite the impact that it could have had they just saved it, but I understand doing what they did. For me, I like kind of the tail end of the record. The title song's pretty good. I like High Speed Train, The Ascent of Man. What I don't like is songs like Make It All Okay and the experiments like The Outsiders. It is kind of like they took the template for Out of Time, which came out, 12, 11 years before this one, 12 years before, if I'm doing my math right. Where they're making like a pop record, and I would almost say this is adult contemporary, but also throwing in a couple of experiments where they've got Q-Tip on this one, and on Out of Time they had KRS-One for kind of a hip hop influence, at least on one track. And where they fail is just everything sounds. It's a one record where things sound punched in, where you're listening to it and you're like, okay, here's where Peter Buck punched in a solo. Here's where they punched in some added keyboards. And the earlier records never sound like that. Yeah, most of them don't at all. But this one, you can kind of like, okay, here's that signature sound kind of coming in at this point. And it just doesn't hold up to the very, very high standards of REM records. But it is definitely worth listening to and is not a complete dud by any stretch of the imagination. They rebounded from this record in a pretty major way. They did 5 nights in Dublin at a theater there. They called it working rehearsals. They wanted to get back to more of a live sound for their next record, and they did. Um, Accelerate was quite the change. Accelerate is them stripping everything back. And Peter Buck's kind of the driving force. He's having fun on guitar. There's really good guitar riffs on there. It sounds like it's recorded live. Some of it was, some of it was in the studio, but it just sounds very vital again, and it had an energy that definitely carried over to the live experience. I mean, seeing them on this tour, they were on fire. I saw them twice, and they were just so good. Kind of like when Monster came out, they had rock material, again, stuff that would translate to the stage really well. A fresh batch of it, and they definitely used that when they went on tour for this record. This record is very short. I think it's like, I don't even know if it's a half hour long. It gets in and gets out. Problem I have with this record is they just went way too far with the sound. Everything's pushed to the extreme. There's not very little dynamics. I thought it'd sound better on vinyl. It really doesn't. I think it's just recorded that way. And sometimes if you're in the mood for it, it can sound great. Other times it sounds really draining, and as much as it's an attempt to get back to Life Search Pageant and document kind of rock songs, it lacks that mystique. It lacks, I think, some of the lyrical sharpness. But it's a really good record. It's very political. It came out at a very key time. This is 2008. It was a good record. It was fun. It's a record that had to happen. It reset the clock for REM. And highlights for me would be Living Well is the Best Revenge. I really like Until the Day is Done, a little bit of a throwback to like Automatic for the People type songs. I also just think songs like a song called I'm Gonna DJ, I do not like. That was put on there. But those first several songs just really flow well together. Man Sized Wreath, Supernatural, Super Serious, the single. It's just a really good economical rock REM record. After this record, they went on tour, like I was talking about, and they seemed to take a little bit of time, and then they slowly started trickling out their next record, and that next record is my number. Let's see, we're on 13, which is Collapse Into Now. I think record company did them a complete disservice by trickling this thing out forever, different singles, and by the time it arrived, it's like you'd heard half the record. I'm just not a fan of that kind of way of releasing material. But Collapse Into Now is a really good record. It sort of takes the sound and the resetting of the clock with Accelerate, but it expands on it. It's not as one-dimensional. You've got a great single, Discoverer. You've got okay single, Mine Smell Like Honey, which I've never. I mean, are you just bragging? Is it like bragging about your child? Is it thinking you're better than everybody else? I don't know. There's something there with the lyrics, but the title of it is always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it's just maybe a little too poppy for me. Another unexpected thing that I really like about this record is what they did with Peaches, which I normally would probably, and I probably did, like roll my eyes when I heard about it. But they have a song called Alligator, Aviator, Autopilot, Antimatter. And it's just a fun song, but not in a goofy way, not like a Shiny Happy People, which would just drives me crazy after a while, but like a really fun little rock song. And to me, I don't know, I wish they'd released that as a single. I really do. Like maybe instead of Mine Smell Like Honey, release that or have that be the third single. But it's a really good record. It rewards repeat listenings to it. I think also there's a certain element of saying goodbye, like a theme to it of saying goodbye. I love this lyric. I'm in a part of your dreams that you don't even understand. It's just like me to overstay my welcome, man. It's not delivered like that, but if it's not an album about saying goodbye, it seems like almost like an instruction manual for how to do things. If you want to follow in their footsteps, if you want to do something similar, every day is yours to win is kind of like that. That someone is you. I mean, directly kind of says that. And then there's songs like there's a song dedicated to Vic Chestnut called It Happened Today that has Eddie Vedder on it, and it really works, background singer. Patti Smith comes back for the last song called Blue. It just all works really well. And yeah, I think it's a better album than Accelerate, so it's my number 13. And I think it was a really good way for REM to go out. It's a decent record. I think this is one they can feel very proud of. I think Accelerate and this record. At number 12, we have Reveal. This album is like all about summer. I mean, it sounds like it looks. It's taken some of the album cover looks. It's kind of taken some of the elements of Up, where they experimented around with keyboards and drum machines and different sounds after Bill Berry left. But it's much more of a cohesive record. I've often had problems with REM records with the flow of them. I'll get into that later. But this album has a kind of perfect flow to it. I remember Stipe saying that. He wanted a record you could put on during dinner and not feel like you had to switch it up. And it also is just so summer infused. I mean, the lyrics, they're very floral. He talks about a lot of spring blooming flowers. Summer Turns to High in the title, Beach Ball. And to me, it's a very good REM record. It almost sounds like they found their footing with Up, and then this was going to be sort of the new sound. And I was totally okay with it. I absolutely love I've Been High. That came out as sort of a kind of a preview. Stipe did he played a boombox, kind of like David Byrne does at the beginning of Stop Making Sense, for some kind of benefit. Played it and sang along with it, and I instantly loved it. I mean, to me, that's like a perfect REM song, even though, you're using drum machines and all that. I also love Chorus in the Ring. I think that's an incredible song. The Knowing with a Wink That We Expect in Southern Women. I just, there's something about that I absolutely love. I also like Hammered shooting plywood in the backyard. There's just, it kind of has a mystery. It kind of reminds me of some of the lyrics that might have been on maybe possibly be on Fables of the Reconstruction, sort of a study of a character. Um, yeah, and I'll Take the Rain. Kind of reminds me. I often wonder if it's not inspired by a show I saw in St. Paul, Minnesota, where they played at Midway Stadium, and it poured and poured and poured, but they did not stop. And instead, they sang covers of Rain songs like "Who's Gonna Stop the Rain." Um, Great show. So I sometimes wonder if I'll Take the Rain, if that wasn't somewhere in the back of their heads when they were making that. But I think it's a really good record. All the Way to Reno is a single. Imitation of Life is really cool. But it's a great record. I don't think you can really go wrong with Reveal. I think it's one that's almost criminally underrated and ignored. The people that got off the boat after Bill Berry left are definitely missing out on some great REM records. And the one they're missing out on the most is my number 11. This is Up. I love Up. Up was Up is them like sort of reinventing themselves after Bill Berry left. They had to turn to drum machines. They seem to go too far with that. The one complaint I'd have about Reveal and also Around the Sun is that they seem to not just get a drummer back. It's like they're bending over backwards not to use a prominent drums or drummer in the mix at least. But I love Up. I think it's a great album. I think it suffers a little bit from sequencing, kind of what I talked about earlier. For me, Airport Man, okay, fine, as an introduction. I never really considered that like a real song. And then Lotus, to me, comes on, at least on the vinyl, so loudly afterwards, I'm always reaching for the volume and turning it down. What I often do is I start the record playing with Suspicion, the third song. If I was to, kill other songs or take, I mean, everybody has a different opinion about this, but I would probably consider Diminished, Airport Man, Lotus. I'd probably release as a separate single, and there was one other one, The Apologist. I think I would probably get rid of either and have more of a cohesive record that sustains a mood. But that kind of takes the fun out of the kind of the junk store kind of browsing thing feel you get on a lot of Up. Um, Hope, using Leonard Cohen's kind of rhythm as for Suzanne as sort of a template. At My Most Beautiful, it's a gorgeous song, kind of sounds like the Beach Boys, definitely influenced by them. Day Sleeper was a single, great song. Didn't really signal too much the new direction, but you definitely got a taste of it from that advanced single. REM also had a really great way of closing records, and I always felt like Falls to Climb was just like this great song to go out on, especially after Parakeet. Definitely an underrated REM record. I think more people are aware of Up than Reveal. Quite a different beast from Reveal. Reveal is sort of a refinement, as I said, but Up is a killer headphones record too. It is very labored. It is the most studio of all studio REM records, I think. As far as really, maybe it was labored recording it, but it definitely sounds like they had fun playing around with new sounds and going very deep. You put on a pair of headphones, you'll hear stuff you don't normally hear in the mix. But so that's my number 11. That's 5 records for today, counting down. That's number 15 through 11. And it just so happens to be the era where Bill Berry left and they became a 3-piece. And as Michael Stipe said, a 3-legged dog has to learn to walk differently, which I really like. I think it's wrong for people to cut off and go, oh, I don't like them after Bill Berry left, or after Bill Berry left, I was no longer interested. You're missing a lot of really good records here. All 5 of these have their merits. Up and Reveal, especially. Accelerate if you want more of a rock record, and yeah, Collapse Into Now, just a great collection of songs and plays really well. And yes, I would not start with Around the Sun, but once you got all the other ones, there's definitely a few songs there to listen to, and I think it helps to go back with a perspective of this is just a killer band, made 15 records. Most of them are absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, they're allowed, a few missteps as they got older and as their band changed, and people left. Or key person, Bill Berry left, who didn't just play drums. He also wrote songs and sang backup, and all four of those members were equal partners in the band, which I think also gets lost sometimes, especially as you get into the later period where it starts to feel maybe like it's more about Stipe. It wasn't. It's all four of them, and with these 5 albums, just the three of them. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please let me know what you think of these records. These all happen to be part of the post Bill Berry period, so definitely let me know what you think of that as well, and I'll be back soon. Thanks.